work? Oh, sorry, it's a slight delay, but it's okay. We caught it there now. Good evening, everyone. In for another edition of Paranormal Chronicles. I've created this as a platform to try and bring together people with different loosely based paranormal interests, whether it's ghosts, spirits, healing, detection, anything loosely based on the subject matter. Tonight I've got an old friend with me, Danny Schoen, who I think, if I remember right, Danny, we met through a paranormal group, if that's right.
We did, yeah. I think you were doing a lot of work at Plasteg at the time.
Yeah, I think it was before. I think it was before that. I think it was Celtic Paranormal. I think Steve was telling me.
Yeah, I was part of the Celtic Ghost Club at the time.
Yeah. That's it. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, and that's where we met you first.
Yes.
Just as a friend of somebody who sort of like knew you, and we asked you along for your to come and,
there was a chap who I think I was with at Plasteg with. I knew him, Jamie, and I think it was him that introduced me and brought me along. And then I met up with a few others as well. I remember Miggs was there early on in the early days as well.
Yeah. So that was would be about 15 years ago, I'd imagine.
At least that, yes. At least that.
Easily.
Because I was talking to Steve about it as well, and we were trying to reminisce, and we think that's when things got together.
Yeah.
Anyway, tonight you volunteered to come along and talk about Reiki, which I've got my own little story, but I will I'll tie that in a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Do you want to sort of introduce how you started, or how you became interested, or became a practitioner? How it all started?
Oh, it started off. Someone had mentioned Reiki. This is before I knew absolutely anything about it, and someone said, "Oh, it's a hands-on healing," and I'm like, yeah. So that was the only thing I'd known about Reiki. And then when I joined the Celtic Ghost Club, Miggs was her and a lady called Paula were teaching Reiki up in Wrexham. They had gone through they'd obviously done the master's thing, and then they did master teaching as well. And
can we come back to that after, because it's like in different levels, isn't it, as well?
Yeah. Anyway, when I first met Miggs, I've always been one of these type of people who've noticed sort of the changes. I didn't know what the changes were in environments and stuff. An example would be if you walk into the pub and there's an atmosphere.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody said anything, but something's happened or something's gone on. As a child, I'd kind of like walk into places and dislike them. Something gave me a feeling I dislike it, not knowing from years later finding out that place was known to be haunted, stuff like that, So I've always had this feeling of energy and a bit of an understanding of it, but never really put two and two together. When I started working with the Ghosty Club with Miggs, she was like, I really want to train you. I really want to kind of like teach you Reiki. So I said, I'll have a few months to think, I'll have a think about it. And it was about 6 months later. It was just like, yeah, I'm ready to learn now. And I did no research, because I'm a terrible researcher. And I did no research about it. I thought, I'm going to go into this blind and not be influenced by anything else. Just go for the teaching. So a lot of the modern day teaching today is you'll go and do your level 1 through a day, through one day, and then the next day you'll do your level 2. And then I think, because I was never taught like this, and I think then the weekend later you have a day and go to masters. My teaching was quite different because I had night classes of about 3 hours, and I'd have 4 lessons at level 1. And then straight after that, we'd do level 2, which was 6 night classes over 6 weeks. And when I got to the end of level 2, Migs and Paul were like, we want you to come back in about 3 months' time. And it ended up, I had so much to learn because they really just opened this massive book for me. And a lot of the time it was like just scraping the ice off the top, and the information was there, you know. And it was almost 12 months before I actually went back and did my level 3, which is what we would call masters. And I know it's kind of like based in from a Japanese sort of way. Dr. Usui, the guy who sort of developed or discovered this healing technique, he was a Buddhist monk, and it all stems from him. So I did my masters at 12 months later, and then I sort of moved off, and that was in 2008, and I've been practicing ever since. So
Can I just go back to day one when you first went to classes?
yeah.
And can you remember what at the end of the class, do you think to yourself, is this something I'm really interested in? Or are you thinking, wow, this is something I never knew anything about? What was your thoughts just after day one of the classes?
After the first, it was quite weird because, like I said, it was like subconsciously the information was already there. I think the lesson was, for me personally, was just bringing it to the surface.
Yeah.
So I had questions which were difficult questions for my masters.
Yeah.
So
were they able to answer those difficult questions?
They were, yeah, definitely. They did. But I'm such a logical thinker. I'm terrible for it. I would definitely call myself a debunker more than anything. And I would like to debunk everything before I could say, hey, that's paranormal or whatever. So these questions were like, if they didn't answer that evening, then they would have an answer, because they would go back to their teachers, and their teachers would go and kind of like sort of answer the questions, because I'd have a question and I'd have my sort of answer, but a logical answer, and how I would deal with that question, you know. And so yeah, there was like this really underlying sort of information that they would sort of uncovered. So some lessons were not like that, but there was quite a few where I remember talking to Migs and Paula probably about 2 years after I completed the level 3, and they were like, we had to rewrite most of our book because of you.
Because you asked the question. Because you asked those questions.
Sorry. Sorry. But so it was a fantastic learning experience. You know.
I've got one question in the chat room, and maybe it's one I should have said right at the start. In its simplest form, can you explain what Reiki is, just very simply? Or is that too difficult? A bird's eye view.
A bird's eye view. Reiki, when you begin, is something that changes your life.
Right.
Because of the way you look at things in a different way. The ability to help someone is fantastic. And my teachers were always, you know, at the end of the day, you are not a healer. You are the funnel.
Right. Yeah.
It's the Reiki energy that does the healing.
Okay.
Yeah. So looking down on it on a bird's eye view, it changes your life. You start thinking in a different way, because it's a lot of it's based in positive thoughts and stuff like that anyway.
Right.
You become more aware of people, especially the people who will suck your energy.
Right.
and we would play games. I definitely play games after I learned this, where I would block someone, because I'm a firm believer that even though we talk through audio and visual through expression, I honestly believe that we communicate through energy as well. One of the biggest examples, and we're all guilty of this, is ringing a friend up, having a good moan, getting everything off your chest, putting the phone down and feeling a lot better. But if you're on the other side of the phone and your main friend rings you, you feel drained.
Yeah.
So I honestly believe there is an exchange of energy between two people as they are talking.
I subconsciously sort of twigged to that just through my previous profession as a taxi driver, that over the years you get to realize that some people want to come and dump their problems on you because you're the anonymous taxi driver. And I learned, as you probably similar to what you just said, I learned to be able to switch off. As soon as someone started the moan and groan and the unloading, it would go in one ear and out the other, and that got me through the day. Once I figured that out, that got me through the day, because I wasn't prepared to take people's problems home with me, and to drain me.
They drain you something wrong.
So I learned that more. The longer and longer I went on taxiing, the more I understood it and the more I made use of it, but subconsciously. But it's not on a level of the way you've done training, but this was just something over experience, I'd say.
I found things we used to do really is, if I found someone who was draining me, then I would block them and I'd sit and wait, and I'd be nice as pie and be chatting away, and they'll be offload. And because they can't get that energy, they will stop and go and get somebody else. Give it 20 minutes. If they're not receiving that energy from you, that's what they're craving to get, and it's definitely not a subconscious thing or a physical thing. But if you block them, they can't. They give up, and they will go elsewhere because they're not getting what they need. And they're not doing it out of being horrible or spiteful or anything like that. It's not intentional. But if you're more aware of the things that we don't see and the things that we feel, if you're more aware of it, then sometimes it can be quite funny. I've done it many a time where people just give up because they're not getting it, so things like that. For me, it sort of proves that there is this exchange of energy that goes on.
As I asked you the question about how you want to be described, and you said a practitioner. So do you diagnose people and treat based on a diagnosis? And I'm not talking about a clinical diagnosis, it's however you would observe.
Basically, because I'm quite spiritually switched on and energy-wise I'm more energy-wise switched on than spiritually. If somebody who is not, they can still do Reiki. At the very basic level, they can become a level 3 practitioner and be just as good as what I do or anyone else does. But everyone is different and everyone is individual. Every treatment is different and individual. I get information when I'm doing a treatment, but just because I get the information doesn't mean that everyone else will get the information. If your energy is spiritually switched on, then you will. But if you're not, you can still give a treatment, and that the person who's receiving the treatment will get exactly the same treatment as me or anyone else. It's just that the information of the person who is giving the treatment is not so much switched on to
the same level. There's the same level and depth.
I've talked to practitioners before, and who've been doing it 20, 30 years. And a lady I was talking to, I went to a talk up in Wrexham, and I was chatting to her later, and I was saying about she said, when I'm given the treatment, I will just look out the window and I watch the garden grow, and I watch the wildlife. That's what worked for her. When
Yeah.
I give a treatment, it's a completely different thing. You know, I've had people on the couch doing a treatment, and they felt other people's hands on them.
Ah.
I've sensed sometimes that there'd be people around the table. I can't see them, I can just sense them. I know that they're there.
Yeah.
Sometimes there may be just one person standing in the corner out the way. When you do a treatment, what we will do is sort of create a space for the treatment to be taken. So we take all the negativity out, and we sort of keep that away. So whatever comes in is supposed to be there. You know, I give a treatment to this old fella that I used to work with, and one of the things that I say, if somebody asks me what's it like to have a treatment, I'll go through what I believe and what they will probably feel. And sometimes I say, if you feel somebody else's hands on you, don't worry about it. That's how it's supposed to be. But one of the sensations that quite a few people who have had a treatment from myself is they have the feeling of levitating, of lifting up and levitating. So I don't usually mention that because it might put people off. It might make them feel sick. And this old fella Martin, I give a treatment to a guy from work, and when he come round, the big Reiki smile, and he said, I felt like I was floating. You know, for somebody. So if you say that, somebody may think, oh, I'm going to feel like I'm floating, and they don't, then they may get disappointed. Or if I say, oh, you may feel like you're floating, that might put somebody really off, and they'll tighten up, and their aura will come in, and the treatment won't go as well as it could have done because they're tense. Because
what percentage of people would you say do feel this floating sensation?
I'd say about 40%.
Okay.
Maybe. Every treatment is different. Every single one.
Well, every one of us is different, so that's understandable, isn't it? Yeah.
I think I've only ever refused a treatment once, to give a treatment to somebody, because I just didn't get a good feeling about that person.
Right. Yeah.
You've got to go with that feeling.
Well, this is what you were talking about before, about sensing people and sensing the energy around people, I suppose, isn't it? So you made a judgment decision there, which was obviously right at the time.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go, carry on. It's all right.
Another thing was because I trained Jan, my partner, Jan, I trained her as well as quite a few others. And when she was losing her mum, she was in hospital for about 6 months. And through love, she was trying to help her by giving her Reiki. At the end of the day, we're not miracle workers. We just try to help. And we come to the conclusion that we prolonged the inevitable in that sense. And it was a very dear lesson for the two of us to learn. That there's times where you should not intervene, but we do it through love. I was losing a friend of mine of cancer, a guy I used to work with, and every time he come into my mind, I just got that feeling: do not interfere.
Okay.
Do not interfere. It's not your place. And as much as I wanted to go and see him, I really stayed back, because through my friendship, and I'd helped another guy in work, he would have probably asked. And I didn't really want to put myself into that situation to say no, because how can you win? So there's a lot of, it's not complicated. It's all about going with your feelings.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, really.
Samantha Hannah's been on saying that she still uses a technique that you and Jan taught her at Plaz Teg. and she says it's one of I'm just shortening this a little bit. She says it's one of the best tools I've ever learned.
Yeah. Reiki will change your life. It will.
Yeah. To be quite honest, that wasn't an answer I was expecting when you said that. So I'm I find that quite interesting in a very good way.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat room. Friend Holly has asked, in Reiki, do you use crystals?
I train people with crystals.
Is that different to Reiki or incorporated?
No, all the crystal will do was amplify the Reiki energy, basically. So if you look at the human body, we have 7 chakras or energy centers, places that go through the center of the body. These get out of line sometimes. Sometimes if a chakra isn't open, it won't open. There's a reason for that, and we can work with that chakra to open it and get it. So what we'll do is, when I teach, one of the things that I get is what's called a chakra kit, 7 crystals, 1 for each chakra, and we'll do chakra meditations. I have a fantastic one, and when I can give my students this, I said, try this first. I want you to practice with this. Do it a couple of times, and then do it in the bath, and then it just goes bonkers. It's really mad, But what basically the crystals sort of fine tune the energy, if you like.
Right.
That's the best way I can describe it. If a scientist said to me, "What is your evidence for this?" I have none. It's only a theory. But
I know there are a lot of people that are really interested in it all, especially I've been to Glastonbury many times, and the shops sell a lot of crystals and you can find a lot of information out down there. So a lot of people have a lot of faith and a lot of interest in it, and I'll include myself in that as well. I'm very interested in the use of colours and the wavelengths and the frequencies of colours, and then we will have to get our heads together sometime, because I've got some technological sort of work that I've always held in the background that could be interesting, let's say.
I've got a quick crystal story. You'll love
Go on. Yeah.
I've always said that a crystal will find you.
Okay.
Or a crystal will find its way to where it needs to go. So I could go to a crystal fair and not see anything, not see nothing. Nothing will kind of shine at me and say, "You need me." There's times when I've been and I've always picked one up and said, "That's the one I need," but I don't know, and it always seems to go to where it needs to go. So I'll keep it on me, and I'll be chatting to someone, and I'm like, "Oh, I've got something for you. This is for you." It's just a feeling.
Right.
Find a way. So anyway, we're getting a puppy in a couple of weeks' time. The pups were born about 6 weeks ago. So last weekend we went up to Blackpool to see the pup, and we're chatting away to the guy, and this fella found its way to me.
Right.
And it's the fizziest, craziest thing I've ever seen, I've ever felt. And apparently the guy has had it for 20 odd years.
Yeah.
And we were chatting, and he passed it to me, and it's just so fizzy, it's unbelievable. And he said, "That's for you, you can have that."
Wow.
Well, I'll pay you. He said, "No." He said, "I've had it a long time." He said, "Now it's going to somebody else." So what I need this crystal for, I don't know, because it is absolutely bananas. I've never come across. I'm sitting here and it's looking at me, and I can feel it fizzing.
Right.
It's.
But would it be fair to say that at some time in your future it will find its place and what it's supposed to do for you or with you?
Yeah, it will. Something will happen, and I'll be like, "I have the right thing for that," and that will be it.
Yes.
I haven't meditated with it yet, but I've got a feeling that it's going to do something bonkers. So I don't know. I'll keep you posted on that. But just randomly, some guy in Blackpool gives me the most fizziest crystal I've ever felt.
Yeah.
And it's sat here for a week, and I've looked at it, and I'm like,
I
You know.
I remember visiting the Chalicewell Gardens in Glastonbury quite a few years ago, and I think it was fairly early on in the morning. They had not long opened, and walking through and just going past the pay booth to pay, and the person in the pay booth gave the person in front of me a lovely piece of clear, slightly frosted quartz crystal.
Yeah.
And I went through and paid, and I started chatting with this guy. And at the time I was slightly jealous because I thought, oh, that's a beautiful piece of crystal. But then from what you're saying, I realised that it was meant for him, not for me. It was just the way it was supposed to be. So
yeah, if it was meant for you, it would have been with you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. In the chat room, Mandy has asked, do you help people that are ill and give them good energy to make them feel better? Is that how Reiki works, would you say?
Reiki works on what it needs to do, basically. Right. So we have our way of thinking, a Reiki practitioner's way, or my way of thinking, or my teacher's way of thinking was that your body tells you that something is not right.
Right.
And then that will kind of like turn into a physical thing. But you could have a treatment because you've got a bad back.
Yeah.
Okay. An example I will use is a lady come to me. She had a bad back, and she had about 3 or 4 treatments, and it never went. She carried on with the bad back. But what she found is it went eventually after a few months. But she worked with people, and she didn't like people getting into a space. And as people got into a space, she tightened up, which was causing the back pain, the pains in the back. Yeah. And what she found after the treatments was she was a lot more relaxed when people come into a space a little bit more. The more she relaxed, then the back pain went. So it works in really weird ways. It's so not like...
would that be indirect? You were helping her to relax, and indirectly that was helping her physically.
Well, she was just having the treatments, and the treatments worked in a particular way that helped her to get better.
Yes.
So I can't. If someone says, I don't know, they've got a trapped nerve, and someone comes to me and has a couple of treatments, and that trapped nerve still says that something will change. So it's not like this pill is for this and that pill is for that. The treatment will just fix what it needs to fix, basically. You know, I when people come for a treatment, I don't promise them anything.
No.
I don't promise them anything at all. I'll just say, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm not going to promise you the earth because I don't know what it will do. I don't know what it will fix, but it will fix something. You know. So.
Sam's asked another question. She says, "How do you find the right teacher for yourself?" So, say I was a student, how would you advise someone to find a teacher?
Again, I would go with what feels right. Go and talk to the teachers. One of the things that really puts me off with a lot of people that I see who have been taught Reiki is their ego is really... They do it for a badge. And that really puts me off. It may not put somebody else off, but for me, it puts me off. I've watched people talking about Reiki, and I'm like, you haven't got the understanding of what it's all about, or what I understand it to be, and where because my teachings come from the original Usui line.
Yes.
Even though the way I teach now, I've changed it, evolved it but it's definitely go with your feelings, and if you get a good feeling about somebody, then go with them. You know.
Because Holly has asked another question. She says, "Are there any side effects to a person who takes part in Reiki?" No. I mean, I've heard this answer before, but am I right in understanding if you were giving someone a treatment that the person receiving it can only receive what they need?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And with myself, I could have hot hands or cold hands,
Mm.
or one hand will be warm, one hand will be cold. It's always different. The only thing that I would really warn about, as if there's any Reiki practitioners watching now, is never try to take somebody's illness and put it on yourself to help them, because you're messing around with stuff. Yes, you can do that, but you don't want to. You really don't want to do stuff like that, because the whole idea is to channel the energy in. Don't try and take that bad energy out and put it into yourself, because you know you're going to end up poorly just like them. So
I didn't realise about that. I'd never come across that concept with Reiki healing. I always thought it was much more of a one-way thing, that you were trying to help them, not take something away from them.
Yep. Well, you can have energy blockages, and we can pull them out. That's no problem. But if you're kind of like trying to take on somebody's bad psychological problems just to try and ease them off, it's going to really mess your head up. So, but that's really advanced stuff.
Okay.
You know?
In simplest terms, this is a question I wrote down before. How would you describe? I've written down here: are we tapping into a universal energy field, or are you as a healer tapping into a universal energy field and filter it can't say the word now, filtering down to a patient? How would you describe it works?
Reiki is so popular because you can feel it. Okay. There's other energy ways of healing techniques, say spiritual healing and stuff like that, and sometimes it's not, you can't feel it, but with Reiki you can, because it's so close in and you can feel the temperature of the hands. When you are a practitioner, you can feel it running through your body.
Yeah.
You know, I feel it definitely runs down my arms, and I can feel it. So there's a physical thing in a way that you can feel. That's why it's become so popular. But yeah, the belief is the universal energy that's around us. Everything's like photons and protons and all the rest of it. It's an energy form. The air that we breathe is a form of energy. So the energy that around us, we sort of guide this in and funnel it through ourselves into the patient, but the patient will only accept what they need. You know, hence the reason why sometimes I'll have warm hands, sometimes I'll have cold hands. It's always different. And one of the more advanced things that I do is I'll use Mother Earth's energy as well, which is basically like turbo Reiki. But it's something you have to be really, because it could hurt. It does hurt if you can like full on Mother Earth. So I sort of mix it up with the Reiki itself, you know. But that's really advanced stuff. That's the only stuff I sort of teach when people get to level 3. It's a little bit out there, but once they've learned the basics and they've got the energy flow and all the rest of it, then when we go on to the Mother Earth's energy, it's very potent, and you have to be really careful with it, you know.
But from my point of view, I use the middle name of Obiwan as a Facebook page name, but that's because I've always been fascinated by the thought of the force and this universal energy, which I completely believe in. Hence, I've kept the name. I started it just as a joke, but I've kept it. But also in the same terms of ghosts and spirits and paranormal, which I'm obviously heavily involved in, is I just built a machine which is at the King's Head, which will detect the presence of a person up to about 4 foot away now, and I know I can improve that. And that is, it's one of two things. It's either detecting an energy field by a person, or it is detecting a change in the energy field as they approach the machine. It's one of the
Yeah.
two. I haven't quite figured it out. It's one of the two, but I know it works, and I know it's interesting. So there is definitely this thing about there's an energy field out there. We walk through it, we pass through it, and it's something to do with us. So I'm 100% with you there.
Yeah, it's like that. I told you to check out that movie, that documentary the other day. Was it?
Yes.
People.
Yes.
And now I thought that would definitely be up your street.
Yes.
And
it was.
When you were watching the people who were using their mind to turn the thing under the glass, and I'm thinking Reiki had something to do with that, because the person who was doing it, she was very much into meditation in a big way, you know. So the scientists, I love it how the scientists are really like taking note that there are things that are going on that we can't measure, we don't know, you know. So
well, there's still, I mean, I like to quote elements of quantum physics, and it sounds complicated, and I don't profess to know it all, but within the terms of quantum physics, there is a term called spooky action at a distance, where two particles can interact at great distances faster than the speed of light. And this is not me quoting it, this is physicists from many years ago were starting to realize these things. And I'm not going to quote any examples of anything that I've done in that way, only the fact that I agree that there are things that we are capable of and things that happen around us that we can't yet fully understand. I hope we get to grips with them one day, but there are still mysteries out there which fascinate me.
Definitely. So
teaching, I don't expect you to go into any great details, but just give a basic overview of different levels of teaching that you teach people. Just an outline. How do you go about teaching a student?
Level 1, well, we have what's called an attunement, and what we are doing on the attunement is there's different parts of the attunement. Every time you have an attunement, it's one piece, and on the second lesson, then the second part of the first attunement goes, and then the third part, and then the fourth part. So all 4 parts over 4 weeks, you will be attuned to that. And the attunements sort of prepare your energy for the channeling of the energy, basically. It's like starting with a little hole and start making it bigger for the energy to flow a little bit easier. Now, I'm a firm believer that if you were switched on enough to understand the energies and stuff like that, and you were prepared to go with your instinct and your feeling about what people are taught within the lessons, you could learn this on your own without attunements. The more you use it, the more it flows, the more you start to understand about it. So the attunements just help that along. So if you were learning from me, you would have 4 attunements over 4 weeks. If you went and did it in the day, you'd have all 4 all at the same time in one go. The reason why I do it over 4 weeks is to let someone have a week of feeling what that attunement's all about. Yeah.
I was just going to ask you actually, which would you suggest is the best, but you just answered that question, because it allows people to let the lesson sink in, I suppose, over a week, really, isn't it, before they get the next one?
Then at the beginning of level 2, you have your level 2 attunement, and then you don't have any more attunements then until you come back to go to your level 3, which is your masters. Once you've been attuned, some people like to go back and get reattuned. I've never ever had that feeling that I need to go back for a reattunement, because I suppose it'd be like, for no reason, go and do your driving test again. You know, when I teach, when I say, like, go away for 6 months, come back and tell me something I don't know. You know, tell me how you have took my lessons and made it work for you.
Yeah.
Tell me how you're doing it and how you've evolved, and then I will take you to master and I'll teach you some more stuff. And this is the toolbox. You've got your toolbox, go out and learn. If you have got any questions, if I can't answer, then I will go back to my masters and then we'll go back, but we'll get an answer for you. I like to see people evolve.
Right, yeah.
With the lessons that I do, because my lessons were based, the lessons that I teach now are based on my original teachings from my masters, but I fine-tuned them again.
Your personal
Yeah,
evolution that you brought to it.
The very basics stay, that the foundations stay the same. It's very true to the traditional Usui teachings, but I fine-tune things from there that I found that work best for me. So I would expect my students to fine-tune that again and tune it for themselves.
Have you ever learned something important to you from one of your students that's been through your teaching?
Yeah, because everyone has a different way of thinking, and I was showing one of them something, and they just turned around and said, "Well, that doesn't work right. If I do it like this," I've never thought of that. Yeah, go with it. That's what I want to hear. You're on the right track. You're just, go with what's inside, go with what you're feeling.
I mean, I'm very open to that. Obviously, I work a lot with technology, and I sometimes get a block, as in I can't get something to work in the way I want it to, and I will put it on the shelf for a while, and then I might read something that clicks in with what I want to make, and all of a sudden, that's why I'm not doing it properly. And even people talking to me give me ideas as well. So I'm very open to it, evolving ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
Samantha's asked a question again, and she says, are you ever drawn to someone that you want to teach? So I guess you'd have to sort of know them in a little bit in the first place, wouldn't you?
I've never been drawn to someone to teach them, but I get the feeling if it's right for them.
Yeah.
I've never turned someone down as a student. Never. I've never turned anyone down, but I'd be teaching thinking, this is not for you. I don't get the good feeling that this is for the badge and it's not for what Reiki is there for. But if they're getting it out there, they're getting it out there, and that's the main thing. But there's never been anyone that I have met to think, I would really like to teach you, because that's what happened to me. My master was like, I really need to teach you because you have an understanding of it. So I'm sure I will come across somebody. Definitely. I will definitely come across somebody.
Marcus from Plaztag, he's commented saying, Reiki is one of the most magical experiences ever. I highly recommend it to everyone. So, or to anyone, I should say. Have you and Marcus have you practiced anything on Marcus, or have you? I'm guessing you might have had this big discussion with him then, because obviously you've hit a note with him.
No, I don't think we have. We may have, in general, in passing.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen Marcus for a couple of years now, but I know he's on Facebook. I see him, but not to chat to properly. No. We may have discussed it, but I can't recall it. We might have, but I don't think so.
Okay. What was one of my other questions? How would you say, or in your own words, what would you say is a connection between Reiki and paranormal investigation, i.e. the ghost hunting side of things? Is there a connection there, or how does that work?
To somebody who isn't spiritually switched on, who is a Reiki practitioner, no, there is no connection.
Right.
As the more advanced they would become to sort of notice differences. Like we would notice something different when we walk into a room. We're more a little bit attuned to that frequency, if you like. So a Reiki practitioner at the very basic level would get to the point where they could walk in and feel the difference. They may not know what that difference is, but they would start to learn to feel. If you are spiritually switched on, now, skating on thin ice here, way I could put it. I'm a firm believer that Reiki should stay as the intention of helping others, as in trying to help to heal. Now, I know spiritual people who have learnt Reiki and the intention of helping seems to go on the back foot, if you know what I mean. And I don't know whether I feel like they want more out of what Reiki actually is. So whether they've been taught badly or differently or something, Reiki's all about helping others and healing. It's not about giving readings. It's at its very basic form. The only criteria you need to become a Reiki practitioner is you're human. You can speak the same language as the person who's teaching you. As going into the paranormal, I suppose that a paranormal investigator would, like yourself, would have an interest because it's all about energies and stuff like that, and things happen that are not supposed to, but they do, and we haven't got an answer for why it works. Very much a curious mind to do that, but I don't know. It's difficult.
No, it was just a thought and a question, because obviously we've met through a paranormal interest, and I just wondered if it connected at all in any way. But it's not to say that there is a connection there.
There won't be a connection somewhere, but for me, it's not. If you talk to somebody else, then they could probably give you a really good answer. But for me, Reiki is just all about helping others and healing. For me personally,
I know, because I've been doing the investigating for a long, long time, and Harry at the pub quite often says, if we're talking about going to any location, not just in the pub but anywhere else, and Harry will say, I've never known Paul be frightened of going anywhere, but that's because of my curious mind, and I want to seek and find out more. Over the years, I've noticed people that have come and gone and done investigations with me, but have stayed with me as a team, within my team. The longer they stay involved, the more they become sensitive to the interesting things around them, the more they sense energy around them, because they're focusing their mind on it. And the less fearful they become, because some people obviously are fearful, ghost spirits and what can happen, because they've watched too many TV programs and been influenced by them. And once you do it for yourself, hands-on, you're in the situation, a cold, dark room, then you suddenly realise that you're not going to have your head taken off, and you will live through the day.
I think the human race, in a nutshell, is basically, if we don't understand something, we will either fear it or destroy it, which is one of the things that I've noticed over the years. So, but when we have something where we can't destroy it, or we can't, or our fear is so much that it gets to the point where, oh, this isn't so scary after all. And then your mind starts to open up, think, well, I see what's going on there. But generally, our species is, if we don't understand, destroy it or fear it. And I think that's a basic human instinct, really, to be honest.
I just like it the way that within the paranormal side of things, that once I can get people past the fear side of things, to say there's an interesting subject out here to study and get interested in, a lot of people get focused on it more and more. But that's drawn me in from day one, really. That's why I became involved in it.
Yeah. I think with me, why I sort of left the paranormal sort of thing, even though my interest is still there continuously. I think it was just the pull of the people of this, and places. Come to our paranormal investigation. It's £50-60 per head, blah blah blah, and they go to a place that isn't even haunted, and they create an evening, and it's all bull. We went to one once, me and Jan, and I didn't really want to go because I just felt that there was nothing there, but Jan wanted to have a look, and so we went, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and we were in the most haunted room in the house where nothing had gone on all evening, and next minute Jan's kind of pushing me, and I've fallen to sleep, and I started snoring. So I left because of that. I always say to people, there's only two people I would 100% trust. If they released a photograph, I would trust, and that is yourself and an American guy I know, who I sort of stumbled across him as I was playing a computer game. I joined the clan. Everyone swapped Facebook, and I was looking through his Facebook, and his interest was taps. So we got to talking, and he is 100% a debunker. Very, very professional. A lot of teams in America will not go anywhere near him because he doesn't sing off the same hymn sheet as them. Until he's 100% sure that he cannot work out what is going on, then he will say this is paranormal, and I trust him like yourself 100%. If he sent me a photograph, or you sent me a photograph, I know it would not been edited in any way. I know it would be the original thing. Then there's other people I will just say, So you meet these people, and you've got that feeling that you can trust, and yourself and my friend from America, and we've done some because he what puts him off is mediumship, because there's so many bulls out there. So what we did some experiments with him, and I was telling him what Jan does and all the rest of it, and she does quite a bit of remote viewing and stuff like that. And he was just blown away. He said, "This is not supposed to be possible." And we sort of gained his trust that we weren't bullying him, And it took a while. I think it was about 3 or 4. So what would happen is Jan would connect into the place that they were going to, and all they do is give us a street. So actually give her the house. It was just a street, and Jan would remote view into it, and she would give him his information. Now his team knew nothing about this, and he would go in and he would cross-reference what Jan had told him, and she was kind of like spot on most of the time, So little great experiments that you can do. So this guy's thousands of miles away, and Jan's explaining who lives in the house, what's in the front room, and stuff like that. So it is possible, isn't it?
It sort of touches on what I said before: spooky action at a distance, unexplainable presently, but one day we may get to full grips with it, and it's just interesting when you get involved in it, and it works. And thank you for the compliment about the photos as well.
But like I say, there's so much bull out there. There's only two people I will trust, and that's how bad it is. Sadly, that's how bad it is.
I've over the years I've stayed away from large groups for various different reasons. I will work with people, but I have never particularly joined any large groups because egos and various other things get in the way. But I believe in live and let them get on with things.
Definitely.
There is a question. It's been noticed you've got a Buddha picture in the background, and Mandy has asked, is Reiki related to Buddhism?
The original teachings are based within Buddhism, because Dr. Usui was a Buddhist monk, and he was studying Christianity in London in the early 1900s, and then he went back over to Japan, and the story goes he went up a mountain, and you can find the story for yourself. There's I've got my book here, and it's so there's like 5 Reiki principles basically, and these all come from Buddhist religion. Now, all religion has its good and bad. We all know that. These are things. When I say it changes your life, these are the things that one of some of the teachings that we do, and it's called just for a moment. And it says, just for a moment, be still. You know, it means a lot. Just be still. You know, just for a moment, trust yourself. So it's building up your own confidence, but you're still when you're doing it. You know, you're calm and relaxed. You know, just for a moment, let go of your conditioning. So leave your world behind and just get into a space where you can just be still. You know, just for a moment, love yourself. It's self-explanatory. Just for a moment, believe and you shall receive. You know, so there's lots of this Buddhist stuff that is in my original teachings, but it doesn't matter what religion you have, because Reiki can sort of fit in to any belief system. It's very clever in that way. The Christians have really took it on big time. It's massive in America, but you know, any religion.
Do you mean by that Christians have embraced it, or they don't like it?
They've embraced it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Because even though they were kind of like Buddhist, originally cut from Buddhist religious sayings, etc., you know, it sort of rang home with other religions, you know, right. And within other religions, it's the same thing but worded differently. So it sort of fits in quite nicely in whatever beliefs. You know, I'm a complete atheist. I don't believe in God. I believe there is a higher energy there somewhere, and I think we are all part of it. But it fits in. It can fit in with a lot of belief systems, you know.
I'm just going to give a quick shout out to people I can see in the chat room, because a lot of people joined us. There's obviously Mandy's there, Samantha's there, somebody called Paul Roland, I don't know him, Susie Hall, Malcolm Fairclough's there, David West, who else? We got Holly's there with us, and who else have we got? Eddie West. And let's just keep going down the list. Who else have we got? Because a lot of people have been commenting and saying highs and talking to each other, and we've had some very good compliments of the way you've been explaining the Reiki, and it's coming across very well. So compliments to you there. Janet, your other half is there listening, and a couple of and also someone has asked, who else have we got there? Jean's there, and Marcus is there in the chat room.
Hello,
so
everyone.
Sorry?
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone, yeah. Thank you all for joining us. Someone has asked the question whether Janet would come on and give us her insights into remote viewing. So we'll have to have a communication sometime if she would be interested in doing a talk with us.
I can only ask. I can't answer for the boss.
She's not camera shy, is she?
Yes. But once she starts, I can't shut her up. Bless her.
Okay, that's a good sign. That's okay. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Marcus has asked, which crystal gemstone would you recommend as a wellness tonic, if you don't mind me asking? I'm guessing like a general purpose one, because I know Marcus has been feeling a little bit off colour just recently. I think he's on the mend now, but I think he's probably just interested in anything that might help him.
There's people who study crystals big time, and they would be able to say, you need this, you need that. My way of thinking is go to a crystal fair, and if one shines at you, you'll kind of like ooh, this is nice, that's the one for you, whatever it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
because that's something that you need.
Yeah.
As the all-round general quartz is
Yeah.
ace,
Yeah.
and especially rose quartz. I love rose quartz, but you can just go around the fair and whatever catches your eye, that's the one you need.
Mm.
And it could be anything, but on a general rule, rose quartz or clear quartz, natural quartz, but the one that takes your eye, that's the one. And the thing is with crystals as well, once you finish with them, they sort of disappear. You lose them, but they find their way wherever, or they'll find their way back to you. They're strange things, crystals, in a way.
I'll just relate to a story about a lady who was a practitioner. I held quite a basic interest sort of day. There was a shop in Chester many years ago called the Spirit Shop in Northgate Street.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple of ladies that owned it and ran it, and I used to go in and chat with them quite regularly. They'd sell anything from herbal medicines, candles, crystals. They had a healing room upstairs, and I talked to them about various experiments, my interest in energy, psychokinesis, that kind of thing. So after a while, we got talking. They said, "Oh, if you want to come and do something, you can make use of the room upstairs." And they didn't charge me for it. They're very, very kind and gracious. Yeah. Anyway, I had an afternoon there, and I set up about 4 or 5 different devices to experiment with. And one was what appeared to be a very basic electromagnetic sensor coil, nothing complicated about it. Yeah. The sensor it was set up to was a device that had got a row of 9 LEDs that basically settled in the center, and if there was any interference on the coil, then the LEDs would spread out either left or right for positive or negative, so it could show signs of positive or negative energy. Anyway, this lady had come along. She lived not that far from me. She was actually a nurse as well, conventional nurse. And she was able to influence this coil in a very strange way. Now, I missed the very first time she did it, but she volunteered to do it again with me sitting by the side of her to show me, which I was fascinated about. Anyway, what she did, and whether you can connect with this or not, I don't really know, but she held a hand over the coil, and she told me it would take 30 seconds, a minute, and she would build up energy in her hand. And then she looked at me and told me she'd built up this force of energy in her hand, and the machine hadn't shown any change in its display. And then she let go of this as effectively as an energy bomb into the coil. And then the row of lights that normally only indicated left or right, they all lit up, all 9 of them, and then they all went dim. And when I noticed this happen, I thought, oh, the machine's broken, because I've never seen anything like this before, especially with the LEDs going dim. So anyway, she held her hand there for about 5 or 10 seconds, and she said, all the energy's gone now, it's dissipated into the machine. And she took her hand away. And at this time, I wasn't particularly looking at her or wanting to talk to her, because I was looking at my machine thinking, oh, is it broken? What's going on here? But I wasn't too miffed, because I build them so I can recreate them. So And I stayed there looking at the display. Anyway, very slowly, the display brightness came back to its normal color. And then very, very slowly, I'll do this with my hands, the LEDs, where are we? The cameras there. The LEDs come from all being lit up, and they all come back together until there was just one LED back in the center position, and it stayed there. So my explanation was that she was able to release an energy that was stayed trapped in the coil until it naturally dissipated. I have never yet seen anything similar, or been able to, or heard anybody say they can do anything similar. Fascinating experiment, which I hope to recreate again quite soon. Do you have any take on that as far as Reiki is concerned? She was a Reiki practitioner, and she said it was a practice, but I don't know any more than that about it.
One of the things when on the very first lesson or second lesson or something like that, one of the first things we did, if the students never had a Reiki treatment, but they were just interested, and they would get a treatment. I would give them a treatment, or Jan will give them a treatment. I only teach 4 at a time. I don't have big classes or anything like that. It's just for. But one of the things I showed when I talked about it's got a physical feeling, you can touch it. Well, one of the things that I'll show is get the person to hold their hand out like that, and I will cup their hand, and I will put Reiki energy all the way around their hand, and they can physically feel it. Okay, and when they shake their hand, it dissipates and goes, and it goes back normal again. It's a physical thing you can feel. So when I'm giving the treatment and that's going in, it's not sitting on top of the body, it's actually going inside. It's a physical thing, you can feel it. So yes. Next time I see you, I'll show you.
Right.
You know, how it's what that it feels like. There's something around your hand. If you shake your hand and then it goes. So I'd imagine the same principles applied. She's dropped the energy into the coil, and it slowly dissipated, and it started working back again.
Well, I'm glad you cleared that up, because I was never quite sure whether I could directly connect it to Reiki. But yours, if I'm reading it right, you're sort of confirming and saying, yeah, there is a connection there.
That's what's happened. Yeah, that's what's happened. That's how. If you still have the device, we could see if we could replicate it.
I do still have the device and other interesting ones as well. So,
well, we should have a couple of experiments to see if we can.
Yes, absolutely.
We could record it and put a little video together.
Well, these are the sort of things I want to start doing at the King's Head, is to use it as a centre, if everything works out there. So, you know, it's I hope to begin it as a centre of these sort of experiments or sort of demonstrations, or see where it goes sometime in the near future when the world gets back to normal and we're allowed out again. We're allowed out again. Yeah. Is there anything else? I've run out of questions now, and I haven't got any more in the chat room.
I would like to say that in about a month's time, I will be starting some classes, and I have room for 2.
Right.
I've already got 2 students, and there's room for 2.
Right.
If anyone is interested, they can either give you a shout, and you can pass the information on to me.
Absolutely.
I haven't taught in a couple of years, and I really need to go teach again, you know. And then I was looking at how much these people are charging, and I couldn't believe the money that like over £1,000 to get to level 3. My idea and my principle is, if you approach me and ask me for a treatment, more than welcome. Yes, if I didn't know you as a friend, you know, it'd be a different thing. And then the person will say, how much does it cost? My answer is always whatever it's worth to you. Right. There isn't a price. There isn't a price. If I thought you really need treatment, I would offer you, and then it's free. Because if you offer something to somebody and it's free, there's always going to be a catch, or it doesn't work or something like that. So I like an exchange of energy. When I say it's what's it worth to you, bottle of wine, it doesn't have to be money. If you're absolutely flat skid broke, and I think you really need that thing, all I'd say this evening before you go to bed, just say thanks to the energy up there. Don't put a good word in for me. It's the energy that's fixed you. Whatever it's worth, what is it worth for you? You know, and it doesn't make a difference if it's £1 or £50. It's irrelevant what it's worth for you. So I was thinking about this over the last couple of days about charging for teaching. What would I charge? And I was seeing this 1,000, 1,500 quid and this, that, and the other, and I'm thinking, what I would charge for teaching would be 25 quid a lesson all the way through to the end of masters. None of this, so much for this, and you go to level 2, then you got to pay more, and then you go to master and you have a couple of lessons and it's like £600-700. Not in it for the money, the exchange of energy. That's all I'm interested in. So if anyone would like to get in touch with me, if they want to feel like they want to learn, it's £25 a lesson, and we will work the days out or the night classes out when everyone can do it, and we'll do it in a nice, friendly atmosphere. 25 quid enough, I think.
So if anyone's interested, either get in touch with me or directly to Danny. We'll connect together, or you can connect together. Right. The only thing I will say is that I'm hoping to build up more and more of these sort of paranormal chronicles, and pretty soon I'll start doing them from the King's Head, because it's more atmospheric there. It can be a little bit noisy, but it's definitely atmospheric. So it'll be a little bit more involved from there. And if anyone has got any interesting paranormal or spiritual related subjects that they would like to talk to, get in touch with me. It doesn't have to be an hour long, it can be half an hour long, however you want to talk about things. And sit and have a chat and share your knowledge and information with the world. Give me a shout if you've got something interesting to say. And with that, we will call this to an end. Thank you, everyone that's been listening. Hope you'll join me again for the next one. And we'll call it a night. Thank you very much, Danny, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Till the next time, stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.